one, I guarantee you the 5-time MVP, Peyton Manning, has the weakest arm amongst them. I guarantee you. It's not always about being able to throw the ball through a brick wall or through a car wash without getting it wet. It's about getting guys lined up. It's about making the right decision. It's about getting out of bad plays and getting into good plays. And that's been the number one question about Johnny Manziel since day one. Because I don't think anyone doubts that he has the physical ability to play the position at the NFL level. There's some concern over the size. There's no question about that. But the biggest issue has always remained, will he do what it takes preparation-wise, and will he make good decisions when under fire during an NFL game? And, we get to see that for the first time this weekend.
Yep, and my gut still tells me, we're just talking about week one of the NFL season. I don't know about the bye week, which is strategically placed by the NFL in a very good place for the Browns, just in case they decided to change gears after a couple of games. But you'd almost think that the NFL knew what they were doing when they put that bye week nice and early in the Browns schedule. They said, hey, maybe we can jumpstart this Johnny football thing. But anyways, I still think, and really I'm going off what Mike Pettin said about even the preseason game. For now, Brian Hoyer, it was his job to lose, and he hasn't lost it yet. And so part of me says that if he has some noticeably bad performances or weak performances in either of these preseason games, then he blows that window wide open, and I think it's over for him. But I think if he does and just moderately does well and does not blow himself up, I think maybe from that perspective only of not doing anything to lose the job, he will maintain the job into week one. But again, that bye week looms literally, like a black cloud over Brian Hoyer. Even if you're doing well and we're 0 whatever, hey, you got to go. You know what I mean? So I think that's a possibility. But I think Hoyer would still have to play himself out of it to start the season. It has nothing to do with week 2, but for game 1, I think he will have to play himself out of it in the preseason.
Yeah, I wrote about it a couple weeks ago before camp really started. Brian Hoyer really can't ask for anything more than he's gotten, and by that I mean, I always say pedigree, breeds opportunity in the NFL. In other words, Johnny Manziel is a first-round pick. Brian Hoyer's the guy who's an undrafted player with, 4 stops in 5 or 6 years or whatever it's been, who's coming off ACL surgery. So a guy with that resume generally isn't going to get a chance to compete against, the high-profile rookie, with the Heisman Trophy
right.
on his, curriculum. So it generally doesn't happen. So if you're asking yourself, just how bad Johnny Manziel's off-season was as a pro, understand that he put Brian Hoyer back into the conversation. He gave Brian Hoyer a chance. And as I wrote about, there's at least 2 organizations. I heard it out of the mouths of people from the Philadelphia Eagles with Nick Foles and people with the Minnesota Vikings regarding Teddy Bridgewater. They both coined the term anti-Manziel to describe those quarterbacks as far as their work ethic, as far as their ability, as far as what they do off the field and what they do to get ready and as far as preparation goes. That's how bad his first few months as a pro were, where other teams are using that term to describe their young quarterbacks. So, if you're Brian Hoyer, that's all you can ask for. He's got a chance. And I bring up Nick Foles because Nick Foles is a good example of what can happen. Because if you go back to last year here in Philadelphia, Foles was no Chip Kelly guy. Everyone thought Chip Kelly wanted a movement-based quarterback. He certainly wanted Michael Vick to be the starter, and Vick won the job. And Foles only got his chance when he was pressed into action, and he played so well there's no other option. The guy threw 27 touchdowns versus 2 interceptions. There's no other option. You can't bench a guy like that. You have to play him. And that's the point I'm trying to make with Brian Hoyer. He now has the chance. I'm not comparing him to Tom Brady. Same thing happened there. Remember, Tom Brady was a 6th-round pick, 199th overall. If Mo Lewis didn't knock Drew Bledsoe out of that game all those years ago, Tom Brady may have never existed. But he got into the game and performed. It happened with Nick Foles last year. So the point is, if you get that chance, and Manziel's left the door, ajar, so to speak, for Hoyer, now Hoyer's in control of his own destiny. He wins this job. He plays well. It's his job. They're not going to bench him. Now, that said, there's no room for error, because the minute the minute there's a hiccup, the minute he doesn't play well, people are going to be screaming for Manziel, and that's exactly what's going to happen. They're going to go to Johnny Manziel, the 1st-round pick. But again, if you perform at a Pro Bowl level like Nick Foles did last year, it's your job. No one's taking it away from you. It's very, very unlikely, but that's what Johnny Manziel did with his offseason. He left the door open for Brian Hoyer.
I agree with you, too. You hit that spot on, because I've seen that just during training camp so far. The days where Brian Hoyer is even a step behind where he was the day before, it's considered a positive thing for John Manziel and his closing the gap. But what you said hit dead. Hoyer yesterday, what he said when he was asked why he hasn't chosen, because he was given the option if he needed days off for his knee, to take a day off if there was swelling. He said, no, I spend all night, I treat it, I do what I got to do. I can't afford to take a day off. I'm not looking to take a day off. And he knows what you just said, that maybe he's being given the opportunity, but the very second he even pauses to look behind him, that's an opportunity for somebody to push him back and give Manziel a chance to take his spot. So if he looks at it that way, and he said it, I can't afford to take a single day off.
Yeah, there's no margin for error for him.
None.
There's no question, and he understands that. He's a smart guy. But again, he's in a position that he really thought he would never be in. And that's with an opportunity to have a chance to play. And once you have a chance to play, again, if you perform, it doesn't matter what your pedigree is then. Because even though that pedigree means a lot as far as getting an opportunity in the NFL, it means a ton as far as what happens on the field. That's where the performance aspect comes into it. So the 1st-round pick's going to get chance after chance after chance. The undrafted guy is not, but when he gets that chance, if he performs, they're not taking him out of the game. That's just the nature of the game, because if you're winning, if a guy's playing at a Pro Bowl level, there's no reason to sit you down. And that's what, more than anything else, Johnny Manziel did is put Brian Hoyer in the conversation and give him a chance to win this job. It's still an uphill battle. There's no question about it. It's extremely unlikely. It doesn't happen very often. But you saw it in New England. Drew Bledsoe, Tom Brady. You saw it in Philadelphia last year, Michael Vick, Nick Foles. And you could see it this year in Cleveland.
Absolutely. It's going to be interesting to see how this thing plays out. We get the first taste of it against Detroit here this weekend, and Hoyer and probably Manziel will get some runs with the ones too, but both guys will get their chance for the first live action. And I want to see it too. I've been talking about the Browns defense. You haven't been with me, but I'm sure you've heard from some of your guys from some of the media that's been there about the uptick of the Browns defense and the hype around them. And I'm still in this, man. I know they're going to be good. You can see that there's going to be some good to this defense. It's right guys, right scheme, right group, and they're much more aggressive. But I'm still waiting to see. I can't wait for Saturday. As much as the quarterbacks has some people excited, I want to see against a team that you don't know what plays they're running, how the Browns defense looks against Detroit, because I want to know if it's a matter of the offense making the defense look better, or if the Browns really are going to have one of those defenses a team can lean on this year.
Well, there's two ways I look at that. Obviously, it's a very, Detroit's a very talented offensive club, but, week one of preseason, you're not going to see Matthew Stafford, you're not going to see Calvin Johnson for more than a handful of plays, if that. And they brought in Golden Tate. Eric Ebron is hurt, so he's had a slow start to camp. So I don't think, it's going to be a big test. But any time, like you said, you're hitting a team with a different color, it means something, especially after you've been in training camp for a while. It just gets everybody juiced up and things like that. My biggest concern with Cleveland and just the fact that I had a lot of respect for the defensive coordinator last year, and I think he did a tremendous job in Ray Horton. And, I'm concerned by that because if you think about that change, the quick change from the coaching staff, I was never a Norv Turner guy, but, if you talk to people around the NFL, they swear by him. I kind of, take a fork in the road there. But if you talk about those two guys, experience-wise and what they are compared to the guys that are there now, that's a concern to me. And especially because I think Horton had him going in the right direction. And I see guys like Phil Taylor, who I've always thought had a ton of talent, kind of taking a step back here, and I question that. And Jabal Sheard, I don't know if he's still running on the second team. I don't understand this love affair with Paul Kruger at times. And I just have some questions on the philosophy and the coordinator changes because I think they took a step backward there this year.
I'll tell you, I gotta give Jabal Sheard some credit for his attitude, and he was asked about what he where his place was, and it was funny. He said, "Well, I'm not the backup. The way I look at it, what did he say? I'm the second number one. So when the number one can't go, I'm the number one that takes his place." And the way he explained it, I smiled. I said, well, that's the way you got to look at it. That's like that good way instead of getting all mad about it. But it was just funny. He said, I don't look at myself as the first backup. I look at myself as the second number one. So when one of the other number ones goes down, I slip right in there. I said, hey, that's a hell of a way to have a positive outlook.
Yeah, that's the way you have to have. I mean, maybe you're trying to light a fire under guys, and I think that's kind of the thing with Taylor.
He got hurt, though.
Maybe it'll work,
right?
Maybe it won't work, but we'll see. But I think, and I don't want to kill Jim O'Neill too much. We'll see how he does. He deserves a chance. But again, when you look at if you ask people around the league, would you rather have Norv Turner and Ray Horton or Kyle Shanahan and Jim O'Neill? I think you know what the answer is going to be. 9 times out of 10. So to me, that's a concern, and obviously you add into it a first-year head coach to begin with. So we'll see how all that shakes out, but. I thought, particularly defensively, I thought this club was headed in the right direction last year. So we'll see how things do. And part of the thing in the NFL and part of the problem with Cleveland in general has been that lack of continuity. And I think when you get coordinators of that ilk, boy, it's strange to me when you want to move on from that.
I'll tell you, with Kruger, I'm with you. I'm not I never got into that whole thing. Everybody was so fired up on him. I wasn't. I thought, man, this is Larry Brown all over again. This is a guy who just got paid based off of a 5-game run, basically through the end of the season and the playoffs, and then and he's gonna get that big contract, and he did. And I get that he stops the run pretty well and stuff, but that's not what he's getting paid all that money to do. I personally would rather he be the number one, number two, and Sheard and Mingo be the two starters out there on the ends. You know what I mean? But that's just
and that's the way I would go because he won. I agree with it, but you're right. He got overpaid because he won the Super Bowl.
Oh, yeah.
He played well down the stretch, and you see it time and time again.
For sure.
Not only Larry Brown, you saw